Analysis of the first violent core introduction scene of The Revenant. First, we will initiate a historical analysis. The opening scene of The Revenant, 2015, directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu, depicts a brutal ambush by Arikara warriors on a camp of American fur trappers along the Missouri River. This sequence is loosely inspired by real events from the Arikara War of 1823, a conflict that marked one of the earliest clashes between U.S. fur trading expeditions and Plains Indian tribes in the American West. Historically, the incident stemmed from escalating tensions in the early 19th century fur trade era, when American trappers, backed by companies like the Rocky Mountain Fur Company, pushed into native territories to exploit beaver pelts for the lucrative hat-making industry in Europe and the East Coast. In June 1823, a trading party led by General William H. Ashley, not directly shown in the film, approached Arikara villages near present-day South Dakota. Ashley's group, which included the real-life Hugh Glass, portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio, initially traded peacefully with the Arikara, exchanging guns and ammunition for horses. However, distrust quickly turned violent. Earlier incidents, such as the beating or killing of Arikara warriors by trappers from rival companies like the Missouri Fur Company, fueled resentment. On June 2, 1823, the Arikara launched a surprise attack on Ashley's boats as they departed, killing around 14 to 20 trappers, wounding others, and seizing goods. This assault was not unprovoked. It reflected broader native resistance to encroaching Euro-American traders who disrupted traditional economies, introduced diseases, and competed for resources. The film's portrayal captures the chaos and ferocity of such an ambush, with trappers scrambling to their keelboats amid arrows and gunfire. However, it takes significant liberties for dramatic effect. Historically, the attack occurred in late spring or early summer, not the wintry setting shown, and it followed a trade session rather than an outright raid on a camp. Glass was indeed part of Ashley's expedition and survived the battle, but the movie's narrative compresses timelines and invents details, such as the Arikara chief's search for his kidnapped daughter, Hawaka, which serves as a fictional motivator for the tribe's aggression. In reality, the Arikara were defending their strategic position along the Missouri River trade routes, where they acted as middlemen in exchanges between nomadic tribes and European goods. The U.S. response was swift. Colonel Henry Leavenworth led a retaliatory campaign later that summer, bombarding Arikara villages with artillery and forcing the tribe to flee northward, marking the first U.S. military engagement against Plains Indians. This war opened the upper Missouri to further American expansion, intensifying the displacement of native peoples and foreshadowing later conflicts like the Sioux Wars. Overall, while The Revenant evokes the raw violence of frontier encounters, it prioritizes cinematic spectacle over precise chronology, blending the 1823 Arikara attack with Glass's later bear mauling and abandonment, which occurred months after, in August 1823. The scene underscores the precariousness of the fur trade, where alliances were fragile and violence erupted from economic rivalries and cultural misunderstandings. From now on, we will focus on an attempt to develop an anthropological analysis. This analysis takes this first violent introduction scene into account, as well as other elements of the film, in order to give a more detailed analysis. From an anthropological perspective, the Arikara attack scene in The Revenant offers a window into the cultural dynamics of early 19th century Plains Indian societies, though filtered through Hollywood's lens. The Arikara, a semi-sedentary tribe of the Cadone linguistic family, were primarily agriculturalists living in earth lodge villages along the Missouri River, cultivating crops like corn, beans, and squash while supplementing with hunting and trade. Their society was matrilineal, with kinship ties centered on women, and they maintained complex social structures including clans, religious societies, and warrior traditions. Warfare was not gratuitous, but often tied to defense of territory, retaliation for losses, or resource control, elements that the film touches on but simplifies. The movie's depiction of the Arikara as fierce, mounted warriors aligns with historical accounts of their military prowess. They were known for skilled horsemanship, adopted from contact with nomadic tribes, and use of bows, arrows, and later firearms obtained through trade. Alejandro González Iñárritu consulted indigenous experts, including Arikara descendant Craig Falcon, to ensure authenticity in costumes, body paint, and tactics, such as the use of fire arrows and coordinated ambushes. The Arikara dialogue is notably accurate, vetted by linguists from Indiana University, drawing from a language now spoken fluently by only a handful of people. This effort contrasts with earlier Western films that often portrayed natives as generic savages, instead humanizing the Arikara by showing their motivations. Chiefly the fictional rescue of Powaka, which echoes real themes of kinship protection and resistance to exploitation. Anthropologically, the scene highlights intercultural conflicts arising from colonialism. The fur trade disrupted Arikara lifeways by introducing European goods like metal tools and guns that altered power balances among tribes, while diseases like smallpox decimated populations, fostering desperation and hostility. The Arikara's attack can be seen as an assertion of sovereignty over trade routes, resisting the encroachment that threatened their role as intermediaries between plains nomads and Euro-American traders. However, the film has been critiqued for underdeveloping the Arikara storyline. While it avoids outright villainization by portraying them as defenders rather than aggressors, it centers the white protagonist's survival narrative, marginalizing native perspectives. This reflects a broader anthropological issue in media, the vanishing Indian trope, where native agency is acknowledged but subordinated to Eurocentric tales of conquest and endurance. In a wider context, the scene illustrates how environmental and economic pressures shaped human behavior. The Missouri River Basin was a cultural crossroads, where Arikara interactions with groups like the Pawnee, allied in the film, or Sioux involved both cooperation and rivalry. The Revenant's emphasis on survival amid harsh nature parallels Arikara adaptations to the plains environment, including spiritual beliefs in harmony with the land, hinted at through symbolic elements like some visions. Yet, by fictionalizing the kidnapping plot, the film risks reinforcing stereotypes of native violence as personal vendettas rather than systemic responses to imperialism. Anthropologists might argue this scene, while progressive in authenticity, still serves a settler colonial framework where indigenous trauma fuels white heroism. Let's focus now on the question of the trappers. Who were these people? The historical trappers depicted in the context of The Revenant were part of the early 19th century North American fur trade, a booming industry driven by demand for beaver and otter pelts used in European and American fashion, particularly hats. This era, peaking in the 1820s following the Louisiana Purchase, 1803, saw American expansion westward from hubs like St. Louis along the Missouri River, opening up the Rocky Mountains and Great Plains to exploration and commerce. These trappers, often called mountain men, were rugged frontiersmen who ventured into remote, hostile wilderness to hunt and trap fur-bearing animals. Their work was extremely dangerous, involving brutal weather, wildlife attacks, such as grizzly bears, starvation, and frequent conflicts with indigenous tribes like the Arikara, Blackfeet, Pawnee, and others, who sometimes allied with or opposed the trappers depending on trade dynamics. Trappers typically operated in small brigades or as independents, forging trails that later aided westward migration and even influenced U.S. territorial borders. Trappers came from diverse origins, including American-born frontiersmen from the eastern U.S., immigrants, and a significant number of French Canadians. French Canadians had dominated the fur trade labor force since the 1600s, often outnumbering English speakers in Western North America by the 1820s. They were skilled in wilderness survival, navigation, and trade, having expanded westward after events like the 7 Years' War, 1756 to 1763, and the War of 1812. Many intermarried with indigenous peoples, forming multiracial Metis communities and families that blended European and native cultures. While racism existed in settled areas like St. Louis, trappers in the field often formed pragmatic alliances or kinships with Native Americans to facilitate trade, though tensions arose when trappers encroached on tribal lands or competed for resources, lifestyle, and skills. These men were hunters, explorers, and traders who signed contracts with fur companies, enduring grueling expeditions lasting months or years. They relied on rifles, knives, traps, and pack animals, surviving on game, berries, and roots. And now, let's imagine how a former trapper could assist his successors in the terrible wilderness in order to survive. His guide is as follows: enduring the elements. The trapper's world was a frozen hell, blizzards that blinded, rivers that drowned, and nights where breath froze in beards. After the attack, survivors fled into this maw, wounded and alone. Shelter swift, build a lean-to from branches and hides. In snow, burrow into drifts for insulation. Pack walls thick to trap body heat. Use buffalo robes or beaver pelts. They're warmer than any blanket when cured right. Fire mastery. Strike spark with flint and steel into char cloth. Gather tinder dry, birch bark, bird nests. In wet woods, split logs for inner dry wood. A small, hot fire beats a big smoky one, less visible to foes. Forage and hunt. Trap lines for beaver, but eat what walks. Deer, elk, rabbits. Boil bones for marrow in lean times. Berries and roots in summer. Pine needle tea for scurvy in winter. Starvation creeps slow. Ration jerky. Chew leather if need be. Memorial verse. Wind howls. Bones ache in the freeze. Fires glow, a fleeting ease. Hunt the wild, or wild hunts thee. In frontier's grip, no mercy free. Healing the broken. In the revenant's chaos, men felt pierced and torn. Survival meant patching the breach before infection claimed you. Glass's later mauling echoes this. Nature's claws are as deadly as man's arrows. Field medicine, stem blood with pressure and moss packs. Clean wounds with boiled water or whiskey. Stitch with sinew thread, cauterize if fire's near. Willow bark tea for pain, it's nature's aspirin. Broken bones, splint with straight branches and rawhide. Immobilize and endure, movement meant slow. For fever, sweat it out in a steam lodge. Hot rocks in a pit, covered hides. Mental fortitude, the mind breaks before the body. Chant prayers or trapper tales to stave madness. Focus on one step, one breath. The revenant rises not from strength alone, but unbreakable will. Memorial verse. Blood soaks earth, pain's cruel art. Bind the wound, steel the heart. From death's door, the strong return. In wild's forge, the spirit burns. Brotherhood and betrayal. The human frontier trappers banded for survival, yet greed fractured bonds, as Fitzgerald's treachery shows. In the attack's aftermath, loyalty was life. Allies true, choose companions wise, skilled shots, honest hearts. Share loads, watch backs. In raid, form a line, volley fire, then bayonets. Trade and parley. Learn signs from tribes. Not all are foes. Offer tobacco or beads for passage. But trust sparingly. Scars teach caution. Solo path. If alone, move silent. Upstream to confuse tracks. False trails and circles. Cache supplies in oiled bags buried deep. Memorial verse. Brothers in fur, foes in greed. Trust betrayed, the soul does bleed. Stand alone if kin forsake. In wild's court, your oath you make. The revenant's call. This guide is no mere ink on page. It's a whisper from the graves of those who trapped the Missouri's bends. In Iñárritu's visceral lens, we see their raw truth, life on the edge, where every dawn could be your last. Honor them by living deliberate, prepared, alive. Go forth, survivalist. The wild awaits. And if the arrows fly, remember, rise again. Signed, A Frontier Echo. Postscriptum for my very dear friend. Take care of your scalp. Scalping is the act of removing the skin and hair from the top of a person's head, typically using a sharp knife or tomahawk. Historically, it was a warfare practice among some Native American tribes, though not all, predating European contact by centuries, with archaeological evidence from as early as the 14th century in North America. For many tribes, including Plains groups like the Arikara, it served as a trophy of victory, proof of a warrior's bravery, and sometimes a ritual element to honor the enemy or transfer their strength. Scalps were often displayed, danced with, or preserved on hoops. The Arikara, who lived along the Missouri River in the early 1800s, were known to take scalps during conflicts, as seen in the 1823 attack that inspired the opening ambush in The Revenant. In the film, Arikara warriors scalp fallen trappers during the chaotic raid, reflecting real tensions over trade, land, and retaliation in the fur trade era. Note that Europeans also scalped and paid bounties for scalps, escalating the practice during colonial wars. In the 1820s Missouri River country, the Arikara were fierce defenders of their territory against encroaching trappers. Scalping usually happened to the fallen or subdued. Warriors aimed to kill or disable first, then take the trophy quickly. Survival meant preventing the fight from reaching that point. Here's practical advice drawn from trapper accounts and the era's harsh realities. Never let your guard down in Arikara country. The Arikara struck fast from hidden positions along rivers or bluffs. Camp with clear sight lines. Fight effectively and retreat smart. Use volley fire and formation to keep distance. Reload fast. Aim for horses or leaders. If overwhelmed, flee to the river or thick brush. Swim or float downstream if needed. Many trappers survived the 1823 attack by reaching boats. Don't get isolated or wounded. Scalping targeted the downed. Stay with your party. A lone man was easy prey. If hit, play dead only as last resort. Some survived partial scalpings, like the character Fitzgerald. Bind wounds immediately to keep moving. Diplomacy is more than conflict. Trade fairly, offer gifts, horses, tobacco, beads, arms, and learn basic signs. Tensions rose from perceived slights. Avoid them. Not all encounters ended in blood. Alliances shifted. Move in large, armed groups with horses for escape. Cache supplies and no escape routes, false trails. In short, vigilance, firepower, and numbers were your best shields. The frontier rewarded the wary. Many trappers died from overconfidence. As in The Revenant, survival often came down to endurance and luck when arrows flew like the terrible arrows in the first violent introduction scene of The Revenant.